Cut the dang music. What's up, everybody? Hope you had a great week. Sorry for no content. Extremely busy, kind of moving around. Lots of shit going on, but we're back this coming week. A couple things. So listen, this week, I don't know what it was about this week, but I saw in coaching 2 hyper responders to test cream. And this brings to light the problem with the 200 milligram per milliliter stuff, you know, the commonly prescribed test cream. It is actually a lot harder to dial in on the higher concentration cream than it is on the lower concentration cream, right? Because number one, you could be a hyper responder, which means your total test is going to 2,000 on 2 pumps. This is what I've seen. I'm going to get to that in a second. And number two, because of its 20% concentration and very quick peaks and everything, you aromatize boatloads, or you can right away if you're a hyper responder or a somewhat over responder to the 200 milligram per milliliter cream. This is why I honestly suggest, if you want to dial in on cream, and I break this down, the entire logic in the Mastering Testosterone Cream video course, which just launched, livecortex.com. This is why 100 milligram per milliliter cream is the place to start. Even if you're on the 200 milligram stuff and you're having a hard time dialing in, go down to the 100 milligram per milliliter stuff. This week, I saw 2 people whose total testosterone went to 2,200, 2,000 to 2,200 on fucking 2 pumps a day of 200 milligram per milliliter cream. One of them was a pump in the morning and a pump in the evening. You know, have I made my case? Now, that's not going to be everybody. On 2 pumps of cream for me, I'd probably get to about 800 total tests. I'm not a hyper responder to cream. I respond to it, but not a hyper responder. If you are a hyper responder, you're fucked. What do you dose? 1 pump? And maybe end up at 900. If 2 pumps is 2,000. Go with the 100 milligram per milliliter stuff. I'm happy to be popularizing that. I'm going to continue to push the issue on that. It's what I'm seeing in real life. You can make finer strokes in terms of adjustments with lower concentration cream. And that's what you want to be able to do. Large swings in one direction or the other are not going to help you. Minor swings in one direction or the other is where you dial in. Let's talk about the zone for sexual function. Again, estradiol being 27 to 30 is the zone within the zone. The wider parameter is 20 to 35. This is in picograms per milliliter. DHT at least mid-range, preferably high end of the range or slightly super physiologic is where you're going to get the best erections and the best libido. But what people need to recognize is you have these people who inject once a week and their libido is fucking phenomenal and erections and everything. Why is that? Well, for them, they're able to do these peaks and valleys, but how they end up aromatizing in that dynamic is not in an excessive way, but they get a good peak of DHT. So it just ends up kind of balancing itself out. Some of the cream cypionate protocols that I've seen be really effective, you know, these hybrids that I've been talking about are cream dose that gets you to about 20 of estradiol, and then an infusion of between 20 and 60 milligrams of test cypionate once every 5 days. Yeah. And then that they're literally, their bodies are behaving just like the people that can do once a week injections, and they're stellar and they're horny all the time and their dicks work great and they're, you know, everything is really awesome. So however you reach the zone, and this channel is loaded with strategy on how to do that, you have to at least apply those principles. Not forgetting, by the way, functional testicles. There's this whole other element to TRT, you know, that I've noticed in doing coaching where some people just need more HCG. You know, they need a lower dose of test. They don't over aromatize, and they just need like 300 IU HCG a day. Yeah. Pushing 21, 22, 2,500 IU HCG a week. Now that is not fertility doses, by the way. Fertility doses are 5K IU every other day and shit. But some folks are going to need that, which uncovers the point, which is that the testicular system is pretty important for all of this. You know, ultimately you make the test from your balls normally to make you perform normally, you know, or optimally sexually. If you just erase that completely by not having the right dose of HCG or having no HCG, you're not going to have proper sexual function. Just something for folks to consider. Regarding Black Friday, so we're going to be doing deals on everything on Black Friday, but for now, Mastering Testosterone Cream, this just launched. That is 20% off. The code for that is 20 now. 20 now. 20 now. Source list is 30% off. Source 30 is the code for that. Coaching is 50% off. Code for that is coach discount. That is still going on. We're going to run that through Black Friday in addition to some more discounts, which I'll get to on future videos and send out to the email list at livecortex.com. All right, let's get to questions here. Let me just shrink this stuff a little bit so it is not protruding. Rick Diaz, does the 10% cream aromatize less? This is a good question. This is kind of like along the lines of the point that I'm trying to make here. Does the 10% stuff aromatize less than the 20% cream, despite if we consider the same dosage, 3 clicks, 6 clicks? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. This is how you have to think about it. With 20% concentration, you are getting more at a time per application. You're getting more. It's just a scaled version, a scaled up version of the 10% stuff, right? So think about it. I mean, if 10% of the testosterone is being absorbed versus 20% of the testosterone, which is going to give you a higher peak in estradiol? Well, the 20% stuff, right? It's just a lower concentration. It's less of a peak at a time. That 20% stuff, the 200 milligram per milliliter cream, it just has the ability to really quickly bolus everything. You know, I mean, dude, on standard doses of it, like 3 pumps a day or 4 pumps a day, you got guys with elevated hematocrit. You have guys with head pressure and like a sort of wiry overstimulation feeling. It's a lot of androgens at once. DHT and test, and it's a lot of conversion to estradiol depending on how you aromatize. So the answer is yes. This is part of the reason why I've just come to the conclusion, like I cannot deny it anymore. There's too much coaching data on it, that the 100 milligram per milliliter stuff is the smartest. Listen, if you think like a programmer and you want the best possible result, and you've seen the information I've seen, and you've seen enough information, and you understand the difference between the 200 milligram and 100 milligram cream, you have no choice. You have no choice unless you have a dog in the fight, you have dogma about it, and you want to be right. You have no choice but to conclude that the lower concentration stuff is the best way to dial in. Regarding adjustments of a TRT protocol to dial in sexual function, the best way to do that is in small increments. When you compare the 200 milligram to the 100 milligram cream, which of them definitively allows you to make small increment changes, smaller increment changes, 100 milligram per milliliter stuff? That's just it. So yeah, this happens. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. This is why I suggest going with the 100 milligram per milliliter stuff, because if small adjustments is what it takes to get you dialed in, which is true, you're going to want the lower concentration cream. That's just the bottom line, man. Bottom line, brother. Whether you have the equivalent dose, it's not though. It's about the pharmacokinetics. You can have the same dose, but the pharmacokinetics are different. The response is going to be different. 100 milligrams cypionate versus 100 milligrams prop, same dose. Wouldn't you think it'd be the same? It's fucking absolutely positively different. It's so different, it's crazy. It's an astronomical difference in both the peak, the DHT, the estradiol conversion, all of it. Big Z is a hyper-responder to cream, 100 milligram per milliliter, 5 pumps, each is at 64. Okay, so yeah, you are. You are. I mean, I'd be dosed in 3 pumps. You know, it's not even that you're doing a low dose then if you do 3 pumps or 2 pumps and maybe bump the HCG up to 200 IU. I bet you'll find good sexual function there. You're not low dosing it because you're hyper responding to 5 pumps. You have to look, though, in this case, where's total T? Because if total T is like 700, you're not a hyper responder. You're an over aromatizer. And that is an important distinction to make. You're an over aromatizer in that case. If total T, however, is 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, yeah, well, then that makes sense. You're an over-responder. So you can go down to the 3 pumps. But if you're sitting at 700, 800 total test and your E2's at 64, sensitive assay, you are an over-aromatizer, not an over-responder to the cream. Something to keep in mind. And that is, potentially, that's a worse situation to be in. Because then you got to figure out whether it's your liver or your thyroid hormones or, shit you're taking that is blocking DHT and you don't know it. You're converting more to estradiol. You've got to figure out why you are over aromatizing, subpar fucking 5-AR enzyme function. I mean, any of these things are possibilities there. Joe. Hey, Ryan, I'm on test prop, 12 milligrams daily. Hold on one sec. Bing. Okay. 12 milligrams. Okay. Total T is 953. So this is an example of how these things fluctuate, which is why you can't take the broad brush 200 milligram per milliliter cream, 2 pumps in the morning, 2 pumps in the evening. Because some people at 25 milligrams a day of prop get to about 750, 800. Estradiol's at 25. That's basically where I'm at. But some people hyper respond. Total T 953. Okay, I wouldn't call that quite hyper responding, but that's high for that dose. I'd be at like 500. Free T21. I dropped my dose from 17 to 12. How long does it take for E2 to balance out? With estradiol, you have to clear it from your urine and waste generally, and that could take time depending on how metabolically operative, your system is to get that shit out of there. You clear estrogen all the time. We clear it all the time. That's why if you take an AI, your net estrogen reduction is going to be both the reduction in aromatase activity and your ongoing clearance of estradiol regardless, which is why AIs tend to kill people, in metaphorically, I should say, because crushing estradiol and shit. Because they're both clearing it, which we naturally do anyway, and they're stopping the conversion. So you end up crashed. Plus AIs are too strong. So to give you a straight answer, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, go run it again. I can't give you an exact answer because people metabolize estrogen differently. I mean, I've seen people take 2 months to get, high E2 out once they've got a lower dose. And those people usually get impatient, and start questioning the coaching process and they want to change something. Like, you cannot do that. Give it the time, lo and behold, E2's at 30 and their erections are back and libido's back. It just sort of sucks, and it does take time. I'd give it 3-4 weeks. Go run estradiol sensitive again. I wouldn't do not sensitive because you're going to get an incorrect reading most of the time. Yeah. Does low dose Anavar and Masteron hurt lipids? Yeah, they both can, man. They both can. I would say they can. Will they? It depends on your cholesterol metabolism, frankly. Yeah, it depends on your cholesterol metabolism. I think that the lesser of two evils is, 50 to 75 milligrams Masteron a week and, 5 to 10 milligrams of Anavar a day separately. That's the lesser of two evils, and those things won't really fuck with the lipids all that much. I think with Anavar, you're looking at, reduced HDL almost definitely. It's just, dose dependent. Increased LDL almost definitely. The same with Masteron, but I think Anavar has a stronger ability to do that. I mean, this is why, look, there's no free lunch. There's no biological free lunch when it comes to steroids. So you need to understand that if you're going into running an Anavar cycle to achieve some tissue, put on some actual tissue, and achieve some degree of keepable gains, get stronger, get more neurological strength so you can lift heavier. And therefore that changes your physique in a positive way, which you retain. If the sacrifice is your lipids for 4 months, you're not going to drop dead. I mean, due to the blood work that I've seen in, inbound coaching clients and otherwise, like on lipids, some people just on TRT, which means they have a pretty shitty lifestyle. They're not watching the lipids and et cetera. Pretty bad. I've seen some fucking super elevated LDL, reduced HDL on just TRT. TRT doesn't really cause that, man. A shitty lifestyle in addition to TRT causes that. So take the good with the bad. It's a trade-off here. Do things to keep your lipids in check, mainly taking tacotrienols every day, doing cardio. Healthy food really does matter. My girlfriend and I, when we met, we were doing a lot of nights out. We were dating. I was taking her out on dates and stuff like that. And we still do dates. We do nights out, every third day or every fourth day or something. But I mean, we have instituted since then, like home cooked meals, just real food, pretty much every night, with the exception of those nights that we go out and just have pizza. And it's the routine stuff, real food, chicken, some seasoned rice, asparagus, bread, some biscuit or something like that, and then we have these nights, 2 times a week at least, giant salads, spring mix, spinach, no kale. Who the fuck likes kale? But every vegetable you can think of, just big colorful salad, croutons, craisins, avocados. That's how you keep your lipids in check too, man. Have you ever considered 15% cream? It seems like the best of both worlds. No, it is not the best of both worlds. I've not considered that. There is 150 milligram per milliliter cream. Yeah, no. There's two extreme. There's as far as I'm concerned, there's just two. The 150 milligram per milliliter. If you're going to go that reduction, you might as well go to 100. Again, you want to make short stroke changes. And you want to be able to dial your protocol in just like this, like small little increments. The best way you're going to do that was lower concentration cream. I do have sitting in a cupboard somewhere that I haven't touched in years, 150 milligram per milliliter cream. It's from Male Excel, which is a clinic that I was on board with for a brief period. Yeah, I've got that cream, but ultimately it's kind of close to the 200 stuff. Just go with 100 milligram per milliliter stuff. Honestly, it's not 150 is not an in between. Just go to 100. That ghetto funk. Hey Ryan, ever since I've started TRT, ferritin levels have tanked. Yeah, you're an unfortunate person that happens to. Normal iron hematocrit. Do you see low ferritin causing ED? No, that's not causing ED. Nope. The causes of ED on TRT are, number 1, elevated estradiol. Number 2, not enough functionality in the testicles and the that whole system. And assuming those things are good, like estradiol's in range, functional testicles, the last reason would be not enough DHT. I've seen something really strange lately that I just want to show you folks, and I've seen it over the years, and that's kind of one of the reasons I'm anti-cypionate for the most part. I mean, you can dial it in, but I seen a guy go on the dose of cypionate that will get estradiol reasonably in range, but his test dropped so substantially, and the DHT dropped too, and the estrogen kind of came up a little bit from where it was. So like the goal was, get him in the range in estradiol, but cypionate is just such an asshole of an ester that you could just over aromatize and under convert to DHT. This happens a lot. It's one of the primary reasons, aside from shitty doses, that people have a hard time with sexual function on cypionate. So those are the causes, not low ferritin. Yeah, not low ferritin. I wouldn't really have a suggestion here other than to try to change the test modality to fast-acting stuff. Matthew is one of those people that needs the peaks and troughs. So yes, people do tend to do well. And it's probably because, as cypionate is intended to do, or enanthate, is intended to slow rise and then slow trough. And since you get a break here in the conversion to estradiol, you probably don't go, substantially over. And, things work out. For me, like I made 70 milligrams of test cypionate every 4th day. That was the most infrequent that I've done. I mean, I've done it once a week, but it wasn't optimal for me. And that worked. My energy wasn't really great. But, my erections and libido were pretty awesome. I need a degree of fluctuation too. We all do. Newsflash, we all do. We all do. Newsflash, we all do. It's because fluctuation means you stop aromatizing to some degree. which is what you need. I mean, if you keep aromatizing, estrogen's not just going to reach steady state. It's going to continue to accumulate because there's overlapping of conversion. That is just what happens. And it's more likely to happen on the longer esters too. Every other day feels too stable. I understand. Much harder to control E2 when running high doses with constant aromatization. Absolutely. I mean, this is the thing that I've been seeing for such a long time. You know, I've just been seeing it forever. BM, thanks for the super chat, brother. I'm confused on dosing testosterone cream. I was just prescribed 80 milligrams per milliliter twice a day, 160 milligrams total a day. Is this considered a high or low dose? It's generally a lower dose. But I mean, that is an anomalous concentration of cream. You don't really get that often. I've seen some weird shit with cream every now and then. You got this ultra low concentration stuff. I mean, it's close to 100 milligrams per milliliter. So 2 clicks of that is what you were prescribed. I mean, you got to ultimately look at total testosterone, estradiol sensitive, 3 weeks after you start this regimen to see where it's going. But I would wager you will be at if you're a normal responder, be at 500 total tests, 400 maybe. Estrogen will be in range. I don't think that's particularly great. Big Z, hey, thanks for the super chat, brother. Really appreciate that, man. Hyper responder to 100 milligram per milliliter cream. Total T is 1182. Okay, so now we have the number. E264. Okay, 100 IU HCG. Still get high E2 out 4 pumps. Best fix, lower dose, site frequency, switch to SIP, or run a hybrid protocol. If I were you, I would go to 3 pumps. Yep, I go to 3 pumps. I'd keep that HCG at 100 IU. That's what I would do. Yeah, because, I mean, if at 5 pumps you're at 1182, you take an entire 2 pumps of cream a day out of the equation. Total test is probably going to go. Think about it. I mean, just do 1182 by 5. 1182 divided by 5, and roughly that's kind of what you get per pump. You can figure out per pump. You reduce to 3 pumps, you're probably going to be at 700-800. Then estrogen will be at least manageable, closer to the zone. Might be in the zone of 27 to 30 or 20 to 35. And if it isn't, then you could adjust from there. At that dose, though, 5 pumps, you are kind of over-responding. So you have room to go down and still feel good, still be anabolic, still have energy and all that stuff. I would go to 3, keep the HCG the same. Don't change the frequency. Don't change the site. Just apply it to the scrotum. It's kind of just the best way to do it. You want that because you want those big peaks in the morning. You want to try to mimic, to the best of your ability, diurnal secretion of testosterone. We wake up in the morning, it peaks pretty heavily, naturally, when we're natty, a lot. And then throughout the day, it starts troughing, at night and stuff, it troughs pretty heavily. That's because, and that's where you don't over aromatize, and sexual function stays good at a natty as you're a natty. It is how our bodies are meant to be. With TRT, you're trying to mimic what your body does, but push the limits so that you have anabolism and energy to the greatest extent possible. That's what you're trying to do. It's just hormone replacement, but make it as fucking optimal as possible. That's what I do in coaching. Aside from fixing libido and erection issues, but that goes into fixing libido and erection issues. You have to have it, kind of do that. And you've got to be in those zones that I described earlier with estradiol. Thanks for the super chat, brother. Really appreciate it, man. Go to 3. Run labs 3 weeks later. Okay. Then go to 2. Run labs 3 weeks later. Get the estradiol at 25, 30. Go from there. Sexual function still not fixed. A little bit more HCG. It's going to bump the estradiol up maybe 7 points, but that's probably your solution. Joe, 200 milligrams test cream, 2 clicks in the morning. Felt amazing for a few days, then stopped. Waiting for blood work, most likely E2. Yeah, probably. Yeah, 2 clicks in the morning. I mean, but that wouldn't take me over. That would be okay for me. You might just be a hyperresponder. You need to see where total T is going. Like estradiol, definitely. But if on 2 clicks in the morning of 200 milligrams, if your total testosterone is like 1,100 or something, 1,000 or above, you are hyper-responding to this shit. Yeah. You're over-responding. And some folks do that. I've been seeing it more and more, and it's the cause of problems. You know, it's like these stubborn-ass doctors, man. One in Greece, you have a guy, would only prescribe him 200 milligram per milliliter. I pleaded with him, please get the 100 milligram per milliliter. Don't take no for an answer. You know, his doc wouldn't let him do it. Doc wouldn't let him do it. And he is, in fact, fucking over on shit. That's the problem with the 200 milligram per milliliter cream. So get these bloods, see where you're at, go from there, man. You know, the answer always is to switch. You can always switch to 100 milligram per milliliter. That is the answer. Every 3 weeks with test cream. Run the labs, look at it, do it on trough. Run the labs on trough. See where you are. Make adjustments from there. Dream Chaser feels like his genetic makeup feels better at E2 ranging at 15 to 20. Yeah, stoic and masculine. Oh, there's no question, man. There's no question. It is a thing. Yeah, there are people that need to be kind of on that low end. I need to be right on the borderline. So just to give you something you can relate to, I need to be on the borderline where just a little bit lower and I lose libido. And then erections start to go a little bit south. And then I start feeling physically unwell. And you know, just a bit higher, I'm okay sexually, but not great. You know, erections start to go a little south, need a little help from Cialis once it pushes 35, 40 estradiol. So, you know, that to me, 25 to 27 is like my beautiful zone. But I have seen this before too. There is a reason for that, and collective TRT community, I should say, YouTube community who like looks at bloods and deals with people a lot and has a bunch of information regarding this, thinks that it has to do with the brain and, you know, a degree of masculinization of a human brain induced ultimately by DHT, which necessitates a lower estradiol for everything to be good. At the same time, there is no question that your explanation of the stoic, you know, man feeling happens with lower estradiol. You know, you're going to notice, and so you've got to be careful with that, because if you have a wife or girlfriend or something, like, you're just going to not care. You'd be less affectionate and all that shit when E2 is too low. And, you know, you'll start acting like a woman a little bit and being jealous and concerned about what she's doing and all this sort of shit when estrogen's too fucking high. So, like, this shit happens on both sides of the spectrum here, you know? It just, wacky shit happens. You're better off because you're a man being on the lower end in these regards. You want to be a masculine fucking killer no matter what. And, no, it's not entirely uncommon for 15 to 20 to be, you know, somebody, at least where they feel really good up here. But you got to factor in where sexual function, all that stuff too, you know? I could be like a absolute stoic fucking, and not care about shit. Not have really, it's like the empathy for people starts to drop. It's not a good place to be, you know. You feel less when estradiol is too low. And that's men and women, you know. If you got a woman who's in menopause and the E2 is dropping or has dropped, she's going to be a lot less empathetic to you. You know, to anything. She's going to care a lot less. She will feel less. Yeah, estradiol is pretty fucking important for the brain chemistry that makes you feel, bond, have empathy, all that kind of stuff. Matthew added 3 IU of HGH a few months ago. It's been awesome. Sleep, recovery, and energy. Personally, don't plan on running a trial of GH yourself. Not right now. Yeah, I've got too much on my plate in life to consider doing another thing. I just consider having to, my focus is on a lot of other things that I don't have any room to do any more experiments. You know, my life is in a really interesting place right now where there's a lot of stuff going on and my focus is in many directions and I can't afford mentally to have another thing. I'm glad you're having results though. Does Masteron or NPP affect test blood work? Not really. Estradiol, yes. DHT for NPP, yes, likely. Consider not all compounding pharmacies are created equal, especially with producing cream. Any top pharmacies you recommend? No. Nope. Empower. And they made a bad decision to discontinue Test Prop, which is stupid. Why? Test Prop was out before Cypionate and anything, man. That's all we were using. Yeah, it comes with PIP. Injections can hurt after, days. Your tissues get used to it, but why? Why discontinue Test Prop? It's such a very useful, very valuable ester that some people just need that to dial in. I don't know a whole lot about many other pharmacies. There's Hollandale, which I like. I get cream from them, and Empower Pharmacy. Yeah, that is an unusual concentration, 80. What would you recommend for someone transitioning from PSSD with anhedonia induced by short-term Adderall use? Would this be the best starting point? Also experience a myocarditis episode. Interesting. Did you take the you-know-what or get you-know-what? Because that'll give you myocarditis, that's for sure. That's in the literature. There's no conspiracy theory about it. Let's see. Transitioning from PSSD with anhedonia induced by short-term Adderall use. I'd run a cycle of 9 MBBC if I were you to try to get the dopamine firing the way that it's supposed to be. Yeah. 40 milligrams, 40 days straight. Take a 2-week break. Come back. Do another 40 milligrams if need be. That would be my first suggestion. Other than that, though, if you do have true PSSD, which, by the way, is post-SSRI sexual dysfunction. If you didn't take an SRI, you do not have this. You might have something similar. But if you have actual PSSD, you want to get on hormones right away. Testosterone, HCG. Dial in to where estrogen's in range and you have enough DHT. Big Z, how many hours after applying the cream do you recommend getting E2 total T? No hours. You have to do it on trough. I mean, if you want to see peak, then do it 6 hours, 7 hours post-application. Then you'll see pretty much the peak of everything. I mean, E2 will peak a little later, and then it'll start to trough downward. But you generally want both data points. I don't really have people in a coaching capacity get peak and trough because then they're spending double the money and going and doing labs twice in one day. And most people just don't want to do that. Is it optimal to do that? Actually, yes, it is. Yeah. Get it before you apply and then get it about, as late as Quest and LabCorp open. That's the rule of thumb. Because then you'll be peaking. If you're applying at 9 in the morning, you'll be peaking about 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Get both. Get both if you can. Is there any truth to the idea that starting on a low dose of cream 1 to 2 clicks a day is enough to shut down natural production, but not enough to get you to feel good? So could potentially feel worse. 1 to 2 clicks of any concentration cream is going to start to shut down natural production. Yes, no matter what. No matter what. No matter what. Yeah. So there's no truth that low dose of any testosterone is going to stop you from shutting down, with the possible exception of Test Prop, low dose, and Test Suspension. Test Suspension, you recover your testicular function pretty quickly. It just is in and out of your system in a day. So not ideal for TRT though. Suspension. Prop, you can make that work. Just got to find the right dose. Yes, Mike got both of the you-know-whats. Yeah, that's why you had that thing at the end of your sentence here. Pretty sure. That's just the outcome that has happened in many fucking folks around the world. One of the reasons I didn't touch it, and anyone that I knew, I suggested they don't. First of all, these kinds of things take years and years, years upon years upon years to ensure safety. We didn't have that with this. Secondly, it was an entirely new delivery fucking method. What the fuck? Just scientifically, it made no sense. And everybody in the scientific community knew that. They're just being pressured by Big Brother to get it out there. And, a lot of bad shit happened to a lot of good people. It's pretty fucked. Pretty fucked. Coaching, boys, 50% off still. 50% off. Listen, if you need to solve libido and erection issues on TRT, that is what I do. I'm not dicking around with other stuff. Like, yeah, sure, if hematocrit's over range, we can make adjustments to make that get back in range and, if you need to facilitate anabolism, I mean, totally, there's options for that. But 98% of my work is restoration of erections, restoration of primal libido, and restoration of the sexual system as a whole to youthful states. It is what I live for. It's not only very possible, but not that hard to achieve. But there is a process. That's what coaching is for. BookMeLiveCortex.com. Code is Coach Discount. It is in the description. We're on the fact-finding call as soon as the next day, and we start. We don't mess around for a couple weeks collecting information. We hit the ground running. Because depending on your situation, you're going to need to start attacking it aggressively right away. Any other questions, boys? If you got them, ask them. Mastering Testosterone Cream has officially launched. Those of you on Cream having a hard time dialing in, just get the course. Yeah, you're going to learn a lot of stuff that what you have learned about Cream, particularly that the high concentration stuff, it's not a good idea. Most of the information around doses and frequency of Cream is wrong. It just doesn't bear out in reality. So that's how I define wrong. And the stuff that does work is not talked about as much, but it is in this course. It is in this course. Get it at livecortex.com. Any other questions, boys? I don't know what you guys got going on for the day. My Saturday will be pretty routine. I'm going to hang out with my chick. You know, I've got just some errands and stuff to run. I'm going to hit the gym here in a little bit. Saturdays are actually great days to hit the gym. You know, not as many people are there, and you get to just kind of go and be in peace and do your workout. So I'm excited about that. Today is going to be chest with the fly machine, if I can get it. Someone's always on that fucking machine. But it's been quite a while since I have done that part of my chest, and, you know, you need to get that crease continued to, to work on. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Excited. I'm excited for it. I'm excited. I don't know if I have any recent physiques. That's an old physique. These are old physiques. Yeah, that's about where I'm at the moment. I mean, that's just my peak physique through all this. I'm maintaining that at this point. But the crease is in the chest. You know, that's what I have to, work on by doing that fly machine today. Otherwise, those creases start to go away, brother. Don't want that, brothers. Any other questions, guys? If you got them, ask him. I don't know what you guys are dosing and what the hell's going on in the TRT community regarding doses. I know a lot of people are still spinning their wheels, man. Spinning their wheels out there. It's a shame. There's a lot of bad advice, man. A lot of bad advice regarding what to do, what doses, what frequency. There's a lot of like dogmatic shit, theoretical shit out there, on how to do TRT. And I care about one thing and one thing only. Libido, erections, and then the energy and the anabolism and stuff being good. That's all I care about. Make it work for you. I don't even have fringe opinions on it. I see what works. It's very practical. The more fringe it gets, the more you should stay away. When people start like going counter to what the scientific literature has been saying forever and what we intuitively know about us men, and that, estrogen is predominantly a female hormone. We have some of it. They're driven by it, When you see people going off the wagon saying, hey, actually estrogen's cardioprotective and protective of all these things, and you should have it at 60 and whatever, and never let it do anything. You got to take a step back, man. Again, it's the same thing with any fad diet or any, controversial popular diet. A lot of these weird eating protocols get a lot of traction because there are net positives, like weight loss with carnivore as an example, because you have a fucking net calorie reduction because you have eliminated carbohydrates, right? But then you start running into all manner of hormonal, gastrointestinal, and serum electrolyte disturbances that obviously make it not sustainable, but people are so far in their dogma they continue pushing it. Same thing is true with the idea that you should never manage estradiol. Should you keep HCG in the routine when cycling on a higher dose of test, or drop it until you go back to cruise? You should keep it because, I've read some pretty convincing studies, or pretty horrific studies on the testicular atrophy, the levels of testicular atrophy in steroid users. And it is way far and beyond like what we would do with TRT and no HCG. These guys, like all the cells that make up both the secretion of test, but obviously the secretion of semen and stuff. Like they're irreversibly damaged. But you have tissue damage, cellular function damage, cell death. So you want to avoid that to the greatest extent possible, and you would do that by maintaining HCG on cycle. It means higher doses of aromatase inhibitors or some dose of aromatase inhibitors, DHT derivatives, in order to keep your sexual function. I couldn't keep sexual function on cycle without the use of aromasin. My erections went to shit when I just let it go for a little bit. I went and ran estradiol. I was 95. Erections were just shit, dog shit. Libido was okay. Fine. But, erections. So you're going to have to manage the E2. But yes, I would suggest staying on the HCG. Can DHT ever not the high enough on cream? Go high enough on cream? It's pretty rare, but I suppose that can happen. It would be under the condition that you had used a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, and somehow the conversion of test to DHT via the enzymes, the 5-AR enzymes, are impaired. That would be the reason that would happen. Cat's doing great. For those of you that don't know, my cat, Max, he's a boy, 7 years old, gray white tabby, a snow leopard looking cat. He goes out. Sorry, has been for years. And he got into a pretty fucking nasty fight with another cat that he wins fights. But this one, I didn't see the other cat, so I don't know. But he probably, it's safe to say, he lost the fight. Sunk their teeth, 3 puncture marks, directly into his fucking chest. And he was bleeding. He came in. I went and looked at him. He looked kind of slumped over on my couch and not good. And there's blood all over his fucking chest, man. This is my cat. I'm like, what the fuck? I go and look. I can't even look at it to see how bad it is, where the puncture wounds are, what animal bit him. I can't touch it because it hurts him so bad. He's so sensitive to it. He's growling and meowing at me when I try to touch it. So I had to get his ass in a cage and bring him to an emergency veterinary hospital, shave it off, and look at what clean the wound out with saline, with a fucking syringe that we went into the wound and cleaned it out. And lo and behold, yeah, it's a bite mark, man. Got punctured three different times. And he's largely recovered at this point. He's walking around. He's happy. I haven't let him back out yet. He's eating. He's healthy. There's no infection. There is a course of antibiotics. I clean it every day, warm compress it. I mean, you got to there's a ton of bacteria in the teeth of a cat. It's actually what kills mice that they eat, and moles and shit like this. Moles, is it the eyeless things? Birds, etc. They have this bacteria that's like venom, and other cats can secrete that to you and cause you to have an infection, which abscesses and causes other problems. So, I've been really watching that, but he seems like he's 100%, but I'm still going to give it some time, still take care of him, make sure he's good. Can genes play a role in PSSD and anhedonia for medications? I don't know, but I don't think so. It seems my testosterone doesn't convert into DHT, but it converts into E2 more. Yeah, that's via the drug you took. That's what happens when you take SSRIs, we postulate, but definitely when you take 5-alpha reductase inhibitors. Lorovids injected my ventral glute with a new vial of Deca. Must have had a bad injection reaction solution, but now I can barely walk. Whole hip and side of my leg is swollen. I'd be like, you'll be fine. Yes, you will be fine. But honestly, I used to be kind of ventral glute fan. Just do upper glute. You can never go wrong there. You can never go wrong there. You might have pierced a blood vessel or worse, which will recover, but I don't like injecting in the ventral glute anymore. It is strictly upper glute for me. When I inject any injectable, and that's where I think everybody should be. Steve Wonderbull, high aromatizer no matter the test dose. Aromasin brought E2 from 90 to 31. It would do that. 6.25 Monday, Wednesday. Does Masteron at 70 milligrams leak lower E2 too much without? We don't know. You don't know. You'll have to see. Some people 70 milligrams a week of Masteron crushes their libido because it blocks estrogen receptors too much. The serum might drop a little bit, but it's more at the receptor where you're getting the action from Masteron regarding an estrogen effect reduction. The aromasin is your better bet here. Yeah, that's your better bet. Keep the testicles functional. Get the E2 31 or so. I mean, 31 should be okay. If it needs to be at 20, okay. 25. You need to experiment with that, but make changes on the aromatase inhibitor really slowly and then give it time and run the labs to see. You don't want to move quickly. It's one of those things it's better for it to be a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to dialing aromatase inhibitors in, because otherwise you are going to be up shit's creek. Mastering the Casino coming soon. Yeah, all about advantage play. I don't know. I mean, I don't have the time, honestly. I thought about doing a YouTube channel, but, based on what I learned, I beat a local casino for a lot of fucking money. A lot of money. I'm not talking about 10, 20, 30 grand either. A lot of money. Lots of money. The most I went and picked up was $70,000. Yeah, at the cash cage. I just walked in there. My girl and I wore a fucking suit. My girl dressed fucking phenomenally, as hot as she is, and a black bag. And we went to the cash cage and picked up 70 fucking grand. 10 stacks. I had this whole scrutinized process at the bank, putting it in. They're like, where are you getting this? They had asked me all kinds of questions and shit. Thankfully, I had the receipts from the casino. And then they just let it go. But I don't think I have the time to deal with this. I don't really have the time. I've been kind of dialing back on that too. Like, I'm a busy person, and you don't always win. Even if you have great strategy, you're not always going to win. So you have to make sure that your ultimate wins are bigger than if you take a shot at something you see as an AP or an advantage play, and it doesn't turn out for you. That can happen as well. That is a marathon too, less than it is more than it is a sprint. You treat it like a sprint, you're going to lose money. You have to have patience and a lot of fucking discipline. Understanding cycles, be an ultra pattern recognizer. It's all about looking at historical hit points of progressives and understanding when they're going over and why. When they go over, they're usually untouchable. You shouldn't touch them because they're going over because the machine is balancing. Slot machines have, they have a house edge. They have an RTP they have to give to the house, return to the house. And so, there's going to be a point at which they won't hit at their historical hit points, the progressives, whatever progressives. So 4 progressive, tier 1 through 5. When they go over, they might be primed and might hit, and you can probe them for a little bit of money. But there is an anomaly that I have found in, progressive slot machines, where online ones and regular ones, where when they go substantially over, they're in a balancing mode of collecting. And now every rule for, an experienced advantage player, it goes out the window. You can't touch it. Then there's also progressives that cap. They cap. So, you've got a $29,999 cap on a tier 4 progressive at a $450 per bet high limit slots. If it caps and gets to $29,900, you don't touch it. You don't touch it. This is one of the things that casinos make money on, because they bet that people will look at that and go, oh, it's ready to go. Dude, you could put 30 grand into that thing and it still won't hit. Then it'll hit at 40 and you've lost $10,000. Don't touch the cap one. So, advantage slot play on high limit machines is a science, man. You can't make impulsive decisions. There's so much that goes into it. You've got to factor in the RTP of the game. If the RTP changes based on coin in, which it does, when a game is most likely to be in a positive EV or expected value state, have a floor, all the basic rules, all that kind of shit. Apologize if this has been covered before. Can you explain why the lower concentration is preferred? If taking 4 clicks of 100 milligram per milliliter cream, why not just take 2? Because it is absorption related. Yeah, you get a higher bolus of everything with a higher concentration cream. That's just the bottom line. You're going to get a bigger peak with 200 milligrams per milliliter cream with 3 pumps than you will at 1.5 pumps of the 100 milligram per milliliter cream. Same dose. You're just getting a bigger peak because there's more at once. It's the same thing as saying like 100 milligrams of cypionate is equivalent to 100 milligrams of prop. It's not. Not even 100 milligrams of cypionate is equivalent to 100 milligrams of inanthate because the pharmacokinetics are different. That's your answer. People can't think so simply about it and think, oh, the same dose does the same thing. Well, if it peaks quicker, it definitely doesn't do the same thing. It changes the aromatization and the conversion to DHT dynamics completely. It's not the same. Not the same. Do you just use Cialis for blood flow erection? Do you use beetroot, citrulline? Citrulline and beetroot tend to make me very lightheaded because it's a lot of nitric oxide and my blood does not need that. I make a good bit of it all. Cialis 5 milligrams a day. I don't need it for erections, but it's great to have it. I think it's better for the general cardiac function. I'm a little more vascular, a little more. I'm Italian and French. I'm vascular anyway, but it helps in that regard. Cream made my hair so thin. It can do that. Yeah, my hair has since I've been on cream again, which started when I went to Florida for the convenience of it, rather than bringing all the injectables and shit. My hair is thinned a little bit, but it usually just kind of turns around. I derma roll. I take tacotrenols. It's not really a problem. I have pain running on my whole side of the leg in front of my hips. Second day post-injection, it's still tough to move around, but I can't sleep. So hoping it clears up. Don't want to take NSAIDs. If you're really that concerned about it, just go to the ER, foot the bill eventually, or hope have your insurance cover it. Because in any situation where you're unsure about something that is potentially serious, probably you're going to be just fine. It is better to get a medical professional to say you're fine. Then you have the full sign off that you're going to be just fine. If any time for me, there's been a handful of times where weird shit has happened, and I was like, wait a minute, let me just go get some blood work and talk to an MD and get their opinion, because my opinion, I'm not God, neither are you. We have to rely on the medical community for some things. I've gone fucking to the ER on shit. Yeah, one time, I think I took a little too much Cialis and a lot of Naringin. And it Naringin potentiates the effects of PDE5 inhibitors via some liver metabolism. And, I nearly lost consciousness. And I was like, okay, let me just go run some bloods. Let me just drive myself to the ER, run some bloods, talk to an MD about the mechanisms, which they're very happy about. I'm like, well, the PDE5 inhibition, stronger via liver enzyme inhibition, via this extract from fucking grapefruit, which we know in the clinical literature. The guy's like, are you a doctor? I'm like, no, hard to explain what I do. But having his opinion was everything. Yeah, I was recovered, got an IV and walked out of there. It was great. You want to have that backup sometimes. How do you know you got good nitric oxide flow? I suppose you don't know unless you can actually go test it. You can test NO. I think there's like breath strips or otherwise strips and maybe urine strips. I don't really know. Yeah, but if you're suffering from erection problems, the nitric oxide is probably not right. Yeah, it's endothelial nitric oxide is probably not where it needs to be. But you can't fix that by taking lots of citrulline. If it's happening because your hormone protocol is fucked up, not enough DHT or too much estradiol. These are the kind of things that inhibit functioning of nitric oxide. Believe you me. Brother, learning a language, the racetams. Yeah, I would go with aniracetam, frankly. Aniracetam or oxiracetam. Those are the best nootropics for learning and programming, in my opinion. When I did that for a living, consulted people on nootropics, programmers, executives, business people, learning new things, it was always racetam. Now these days, there are all sorts of new neuroregenerative compounds out there that play a role in this, but it's generally just about optimizing acetylcholine. Yeah, if you can optimize that neurotransmitter without over optimizing it, because that comes with its own side effects, you're gonna be able to learn things at an accelerated rate. Program shit into your hippocampus faster. Your working memory, the ability for you to hold information in your head at one time expands with the use of stuff that modifies, either cholinergic receptors or quantities and signaling of acetylcholine itself. Paracetam's pretty good as well. I think all of that will work. Paracetam's just the OG. You need more of it. I'd start with 800 milligrams at a time. 500 milligrams choline bitartrate. Alternatively, same dose of paracetam with 50 to 100 milligrams of citicholine is how you want to scale that difference in dose, because citicholine is 98% absorbable, nearly absolute, and has a faster onset time and fucking potently works. All right, boys, I'm going to end the stream. Great fucking questions. Back to content this week. Life's just been busy. Life's just been a lot of stuff going on. But this week, I will be back to content, so please pay attention to that. Mastering Testosterone Cream is officially launched. It's one of our most popular courses. Go get it, livecortex.com. Even if you're not on cream and you're wanting to go on cream, if you can't dial in on TRT, go on cream. You will dial in, but you need the right instruction because the shit that's out there is steering people in the wrong direction. It's one of the reasons I created this course. livecortex.com. Coaching is 50% off. The code is down in the description and on the screen. You can hire me for a month, for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year. There are new consults that you guys got to go check out. All the links are down in the description of this video. Use the discount code. You'll save thousands of bucks right now on every coaching package. Thousands of bucks. We're going to run that through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, so pay attention to that. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on. Enjoy the rest of your day, boys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Peace.